Airbnb family, how are you today? Yes, I'm coming to you from a different YouTube channel. You may have remembered the gentleman that put on the seminar in Chicago. They asked me to sit in and do a free webinar. So what I have in front of me here is my laptop. We're going to take some questions alongside this whole little webinar video. But of course, the main topic here is how to keep your Airbnbs full through the pandemic. I first do want to say good news. Things are starting to recover in a lot of cities. So I'm going to be speaking to different audiences here. Those of you who are in cities that are recovering and those of you who are in cities that you still have to kind of duke it out. Okay. So first, sound check. I'm wearing a lav mic and I have this camera in front of me. If we have the volume's too low, have you tried turning your volume? No. Is that better? Before I continue. I've got you.
How is the audio now? Better? I bet it is. Okay, cool. I turned that off a little bit earlier, so thanks. So one more time, guys. Airbnb family, welcome to this live stream. You may have remembered the gentleman who put the seminar in Chicago. They are doing this free webinar. They asked me to come and sit and talk to you all here about how to keep your Airbnb properties full. At the time that we talked about this, my properties were on average 85% occupied for the last 2 months straight. Well, good news is we are at like 88% occupied on average now. So things are getting better in our cities. So for those of you watching this webinar, we're going to talk to two different audiences here. We're going to talk to those of you who are kind of stuck with low occupancy because there's forces outside of your control, or mostly, and then we're going to talk to those of you who are in cities that are recovering. And there's some good and bad here for that. So alongside this, I do have my laptop in front of me so I can stop, take some questions midstream, and answer some custom stuff, because that's, of course, the nature of webinars, especially live ones, is we can actually answer your questions. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Sean Rakidzich. I host a YouTube channel called Airbnb Automated. We've got about 105,000 subscribers, really cool group of people. I recommend you check it out. A lot of hosts, lots of people who've been in the Airbnb game for years. You can see it in the comments that there are intelligent real estate investors, active property managers in that YouTube group. We also have a Facebook group where they go and talk on Facebook. That's called the Hosts of Airbnb Automated. And so I've been running that group for about 3 years now. And I started my YouTube channel when I had about 10 properties, right after the Super Bowl in Houston, coming into the summer. And I'm like, hey guys, I'm going to show you how you can do Airbnb without owning any property. So backstory, there's plenty that you can check out if you don't have an Airbnb property yet. And if you don't, thanks for watching this video, even though you're not a host yet, because this stuff will help you when you become one. So now, what I do want to address is that the U.S. has had some issues in some states, like Florida, and obviously, like New York City, we've always had problems, but there are states that have banned short-term rentals. Like, for example, in Philadelphia, I have 32 properties in Philadelphia, and officially the city says that short-term rentals are illegal during the pandemic. Now, in Florida, they extended that, which is no fun, and there's other cities/states that are dealing with this. And what we've taught our students and our audience on Airbnb Automated was to plan around this by getting monthly stays as much as possible. So some of you, the first thing I want to address, for those of you who are stuck in this situation, when a city says that you cannot short-term rent, it does not mean that you cannot utilize the Airbnb platform. It just means that you can't utilize the Airbnb platform for a stay shorter than 28 days, for example. And then those cities and states also have some like stipulations that you can short-term rent to somebody who's a first responder, like a medical professional or police officer, firefighter, etc. Or somebody, and some, like for example in Florida, they even state that you can do short-term rentals to locals who are quarantining, and there might even be some form of commerce loophole as well. So those of you in Florida who are hosts who know what that loophole is, because I've heard it, put it in the comments of this video so people can understand. The main point I want to drive home is if you are in a city or state that says you cannot short-term rent, it does not mean that you have to shut your property down. It just means if you're going to use Airbnb, you have to take a non-long-term guest or do a first responder. So there are some big players in the game, not just myself, but we're talking companies like Mint, Stay Alfred, which Stay Alfred's going out of business. We'll talk about that on my channel. I believe Lyric's going out of business, but then Sonder has been doing a lot of long-term stays, and Guild is another company. And there's a bunch of short-term rental, rental arbitrage businesses like mine. And what they'll do in order to get around this, and what we've done, is we've put in the description of our Airbnb listing, and we've put in the house rules of our Airbnb listing that the city/state has rules that must be followed. Here are the rules. This is the ordinance. If you use our instant book feature on our listing, you are telling us that you are either a first responder or somebody who's self-isolating. If your reservation is not long enough to not be short-term rental, you have to certify to us that you're not misusing our property against the ordinance. And we reserve the right to check to make sure that this is true if the city asks us to check that it's true. Put that in your listing, and you can keep taking bookings. There are big companies with hundreds of listings taking 3-day long, 5-day long stays, and they've put the burden of proof and burden of responsibility onto their guests. Make sense? Okay, let me check for some questions quick. I know I hate breaking eye contact with the camera, but let me check here. Good, no questions. And Pedro, hello, I love Miami. I'll come and see you soon. I could use a beach vacation. So that is how we handle city-states that have this no short-term rental rule. Now, in addition, then, if you're in a city that is on the upswing, like, for example, Dallas or Houston, these are cities that we've been getting a lot of business in lately because, of course, the economy is really strong here in Dallas, and we are also more progressive and lifted the stay-at-home order faster. So the good and the bad here is, the good is you can get some money, but the bad is the type of guests that we've been dealing with. So we've actually changed our protocol for the guests that we're getting in order to make sure that not only do we stay full and get money, but it doesn't cost us our building relationships. And we've had some close calls with some of our buildings where management was unhappy with guests. And so, for example, we are now on our weekend listings requiring a 3-day minimum stay, so people can't just stay Friday, Saturday. They'll have to stay also Thursday or also Sunday. And we're lowering our rates to not a full rate for weekends. We are actually now getting a bump in weekend prices. There's a return of weekend demand in Dallas, but we would rather lower our rates to closer to our weekday rate and put a 3-day minimum, so that guarantees us that we're not going to have people throwing parties over the weekend and misusing our places. See, the way that this works is by putting a 3-day minimum, somebody who is searching for a 2-day stay can't even find you, all right? So they're like, hey, let's get an Airbnb for the weekend, Friday, Saturday night, let's have some fun. And so when they go in to search for a 2-night stay, you are removed from the search results, which means those bad guests that are looking to misuse a property won't find you. And so that's what we've done. And to make sure that we get booked, because there are way less 3-day longer stays total than I won't put it like that. If you can take a 1-night minimum or longer, you'll get somewhere like 400 or 600 views a month, for example, on your listing, depending on supply and demand. So don't take that as a promise. But for example, let's say 1 day or longer stays get 400 views a month on a listing. Well, if you make your minimum stay 3 days or longer, you might only get 250 views a month. Now, this is important because then you factor in your conversion percentage, which is then going to give you your likelihood of getting booked within the next 2 weeks per se. So within the next 2 weeks, if you're only going to have 100 people looking at your property and your conversion percentage is 1.7%, you are most likely going to get booked because 1.7 of 100 is at least one person who should book your place, but it's not guaranteed. So in order to increase our conversion percentage, we've lowered our rate. So if there's one thing you should understand here, there are 3 factors to getting your listing booked, right? You've got the total number of views, and you've got your conversion percentage, and then of course the price is a final number that really does matter, because even though you have a good conversion percentage, you might have people who decide to go with another property because another property is cheaper. So your social your SEO strategy is going to have to change. And if you follow my SEO strategy, we always say do a 1-night minimum stay, just inflate the rate for 1 night and then do 2-night and longer discounts. You can do this by being a pro host. So for those of you who don't know how to do a 2-night minimum stay, let me just stop right now and tell you. You need to have at least 3 listings on Airbnb. And you can get 3 listings even if you only have 1 home. Make 2 private room listings for the private bedrooms of your 2-bedroom home, for example, but then snooze them, right? So no one can actually use them. Then go into your URL on a desktop, and type in airbnb.com/multi-calendar. If you have 3 listings at least, by typing in airbnb.com/multi-calendar, you're going to force load Pro Tools. I will do a video in the future on what all the Pro Tools are, but the key features of the Pro Tools that I want you to know about is, 1, you get access to the multi-calendar because you just typed it in, and 2, you can get custom length of stay discounts. Go to the pricing tab of your listing to get your custom pricing discounts. Okay? And that allows you to do a 2-day discount, 4-day discount, 5-day discount, where normally in your listing prices, you're allowed to do a monthly discount or a weekly discount, and that's usually it. So this customization is really powerful because you can raise your single night rate and then lower your 2-night or 3-night stay discount. And this allows you to control how long people tend to stay without removing yourself from search. And that's why we've always done it this way, because if somebody wants to book for 1 night and kind of like wreck our calendar, like 3 weeks from now, somebody books for 1 night, it affects the ability to get a 2-week-long stay. So we discourage that by raising the rates. But we don't discourage them viewing, because SEO on Airbnb is what we call an interest algorithm. You want as many views as possible. So with that said, even with the holy grail of SEO strategy, we've actually taken that away and done a 3-night minimum and lowered our rates for the weekend in order to make sure they get full. Because the other more important part of SEO on Airbnb isn't just how many views you get, but how full you are. If you're over 90% occupied, you get a little badge on your Airbnb listing when somebody's viewing to book under the dates, like where they check the calendar to see your availability and they see your prices. Under it, it'll say this is a rare find. Now, if you're classified as a rare find, on the back end, Airbnb actually boosts your listing in search because you're always full. The logic is, if you're always full, that means that if they show your listing, you're likely to get booked. That's part of their algorithm. So the reason why it's important to stay full during this pandemic is because when things pick back up, you don't want to be one of those people who only had like 50% occupancy, because everybody else who lowered their rates to get bookings, they're going to outperform you in search for a few months. And that'll actually affect your income when the getting gets good again. Make sense? So to stay over 85% occupied, you do have to lower your rates, but let's take this within context here. There's something called contribution margin, and if you guys don't watch my YouTube channel, you may not know what that is, but I'll explain. You have something you're selling. You have a home that you're selling, but it's not like a normal product. The expiration date on what you sell is today. And if you don't sell your home by today, and today goes unbooked, you can't sell yesterday. It's past. You're selling time. See, you're selling time through a front door of a home. You're selling a bed, but for time. So contribution margin states that if you are less likely to get somebody to buy your product or service, and the cost of your operations don't go up whenever you make a sale, you should lower your rates to get a sale. And to give you a specific example, let's say your rent for your home or your mortgage for your home is $1,500 a month. What is your daily rate? Well, it's $30, right? It's $50 a night. So that's your nightly rate. The only real extra costs you have are like utilities and stuff like that. So let's just say your average nightly rate is $56, including all expenses, except for housekeeping, because housekeeping is an incremental charge. It's a one-time per reservation charge, right? So your incremental expense for housekeeping, let's say it's $40. Well, any night that you want to break even, you have to charge $96. $50 for rent, $6 for utilities and stuff, and $40 for cleaning. But if that night goes unbooked, sure, you don't have to spend the $40 on housekeeping, but you lose the $50 in rent and the $6 for utilities. So any night that you go unbooked, you lose $56, right? So now, as long as you charge more than $40, because that's your housekeeping cost, any dollar that you charge above $40 for today will start to go towards that $56 cost. Now, people will say, well, I don't want to lose money on a night, so I'm going to set it at 96. But the thing is if you only get booked 50% of the time at $96, but you get booked 90% of the time at even simply $86, just by giving that $10 a night less, you are now getting 60% more, 70% more towards your final cost. Because sure, you're losing $10 a day instead of $56 a day, but the days that you broke even were only half the time. So you take that $56 a day that you got on 15, but then you lose $56 a day on 15. Your total loss there is like 15, 10, 5, 700, 800. You're losing about $800 or $900 a month by not losing a dollar within that $56 cost thing. So now, if you're 90% full at a $10 per day loss, sure, you lost $10 on 27 days and $56 on 3 days. So you've actually now lost only $400. So by lowering your rate to get full, even though you're technically losing money every single day, you're losing less money. I know that could, I didn't actually plan to talk about this on the webinar, so that those numbers could sound confusing. But the moral of the story here is, even if you think you're losing money on a reservation, the only number you should care about is your housekeeping cost, and make sure you don't lose money on housekeeping. If your options are to have no booking or a booking that is $20 over your housekeeping cost, it actually makes sense business-wise to take that cheap booking for housekeeping plus $20. I know it would pain you to take it, but it's still money that you put towards your rent. And you know what's really funny is if you look at YouTube right now, there are a couple gurus, a few of them, who've just kind of gone quiet. They've stopped giving you advice. They've stopped coaching you. One actually even stopped talking about Airbnb, but he's trying to run a YouTube channel on finance and how to get loans and other business stuff because he wants to stay in the YouTube game. But he had to shut down his Airbnb business in large. And so the reason why is because these gurus don't understand the concept of contribution margin and did not do what they had to do to stay full. See, we lost $50,000 in April, but we could have lost like $110,000 in April. But because even through the pandemic, we were taking really cheap reservations, we had enough cash on hand to stay in business. Isn't that wild, right? And so that's the importance of it, because it's twofold. You want to jam as much cash into your business as possible when things are slow, so that way you don't run out of cash. And so even taking heavy discounts on days is good for you, but additionally, that percentage of occupancy that you get from being full gives you an SEO boost when the getting is good. So not only do you lose, in our hypothetical example, you lose $500 less per month per property, which is good, but in the coming months when things get better, you might make an extra $300 or $400 a month per property because your SEO is better than everybody else's because you stayed full when the getting was tough. Isn't that wild? So how to stay 85% occupied? The short answer is lower your rates, but do it strategically. We are lowering our rates aggressively only about 5 days out. Now, I have a course on pricing strategy, and I teach people how to use rule sets. And what we're doing is we're lowering our rates, but not aggressively, for about the next 2 weeks. And so what we do is we use a rule set that when we lower our rates on our multi-calendar, because I just showed you how to use a multi-calendar, right? Airbnb.com/multi-calendar, load that thing, and you can set custom prices for all of your properties. It's like a grid. Now, what we've done is we've taken properties that we price at $110 per night with like a 40% or 35% monthly discount, which would bring it down to $75 a night. We've just lowered those to $75 a night, but we don't want people to also get the monthly discount, so we use something called a rule set. So step one is we lower from 110 to 75 a night for the next 2 weeks. Then we add a rule set that erases all the discounts just for those days. So if somebody books for a month starting tomorrow, the next 2 weeks are 75 a night. The 2 weeks following are 110 a night, but those 2 weeks following get the 35% off. Okay, so that's how a rule set works. You can, in your multi-calendar, go to the bottom right. Whenever you go to set prices, below the price entry field, there's going to be add a rule set, and you can make custom rule sets. Now, if you want to learn how to make rule sets, I've got 8 or 9 that I always use, you can get my pricing strategy course as a mini course, or it's actually part of my full course, which as of a week ago, we finally launched our full course. It's a beta version. It's kind of invite only, but I'm going to ask that Navi, the person who runs this YouTube channel, I'm going to ask that he puts that course link in the description for you so you guys can find it. The cool thing about this course is that I'm doing weekly coaching. So we're going to do weekly Zoom calls. Anybody who's in the full course, not the pricing strategy one, but anybody who's part of the full course, since it's like a new release, for the next year, anybody who's in that is going to have automatically a weekly call with me. It may be similar to this, except it's going to be small group, and it's probably going to be through Zoom, and you guys will be talking to me, and I'll be answering your questions. So it'll be fun. So to digress, you can lower your rates for the next 2 weeks. Use a rule set to protect that low rate to make sure somebody doesn't get 35% off of your bottom, like rock bottom prices. And then over the next 72 hours, we start to lower those even more. So we've got our cleaning fee, $35, $40, and then 72 hours from now, we'll go from $70 to $62. And then tomorrow, we'll go down to like $50, $55. Today, we're at $40 in the morning. We're at like $32 in the afternoon. And at 8 p.m., those listings, those one-bedroom apartments are $26. That's how low we've had to go, like $26, $28 at worst at 8 p.m. to get full, and then also adding in the cleaning fee. So what's happening is our cleaning cost, our real cleaning cost, is about $23 per cleaning because we have in-house housekeepers. We pay them by the hour. The normal cleaning fee on Airbnb is about $35 to $45. So we've set our cleaning fee to be normal. We actually make money on our cleaning fee because it only costs us $23 plus supplies. So when somebody books, pays us $35 for a cleaning fee, and then $26 for a nightly rate, they paid $61. We subtract $23 in housekeeping, nominal amount for supplies. We still get to add about $35, $40 usually per night. Like even worst case scenario, we get to add $35 or $40 towards our incomes. And those are the only days that we really lose money on, is those last minute ones where we got to give it away for like $26. Because if somebody books for $40 bucks a night and the cleaning fee $35, well, if it costs us roughly $25, we still keep about $50. And a lot of our rents are under $1,500. A lot of our rents are like $1,300. Plus utilities, our average operating cost per night is $50. So not only are we 85% occupied, but we're profitable most days of the week. And the secret to that is you lower your rates 2 weeks out to start getting like 3-day, 5-day long stays, but then 48 hours from now, you really aggressively drop your prices. And now you can get bad guests, like I said in the beginning of this video. So now that we're kind of coming out of the COVID-19 pandemic, I recommend that you do 3-day minimum stays on the weekends. So that way the weekends don't have bad guests. Until you at least have like a security protocol. My most recent video on my YouTube channel, I talk about the minute system, or minute, depends on how you want to pronounce it. The minute system, it's a noise monitor, and it'll let you know if people are violating like your house rules, like noise. Not only are we using these noise monitors, but we've hired a security guard who will show up at those properties to tell people to disperse for being too loud. And then we invoice ourselves for that contractor. That person will invoice us $100 per house call, and then we charge the guest for that cost for having to send somebody to disperse them for a noise violation. And that's how we don't lose money on our security guard. So big picture here, big picture. You have a property. It's going to cost you the same amount of money to hold it whether or not you get bookings. The only real costs you add when you get bookings are a little bit of extra like electricity, soap, housekeeping. So you want to get as many bookings as possible because your costs don't change that much. Getting cash is king. We're coming out of coronavirus. Luckily, a lot of you right now should be starting to break even or get profitable. And if you're still in a bad city that is like preventing you from doing short-term rentals, it doesn't mean don't do Airbnb. It just means you have to have your game tight. You have to have your house rules say that you can't stay for short-term unless you meet these criteria. By booking, you certify that that's you. You should also be wary of bad guests who like to throw parties, right? So use the noise monitoring system. You can even vet your guests more, calling them, letting them know that you've had a run of people partying recently because, of course, stay-at-home orders are being lifted, and you're not being judgmental to them. You're just, because of the season, you could say, you are letting all guests know that you've amped up your security measures to prevent parties, and that you have had to call the cops on past guests to kick them out for throwing parties. And you don't want to put any hardship on any future guests who have a misunderstanding about your home. So you are calling out of courtesy to make sure that there's no misunderstanding that parties aren't allowed. And if you do it from a position of kindness, you can actually prevent people from throwing parties because they're like, oh no, this person's got it figured out, we're going to get caught. Additionally, if you want to prevent parties, you can just take, not instant book off, but you can take self-check-in off the property. And people who are looking for places to like throw parties and have fun, they see self-check-in as a hint that it's an absentee landlord that doesn't know what's going on. And so if you remove self-check-in and say, well, we're going to meet you to give you the key, people are like, oh, they get spooked, and they won't book your property nearly as often. The only thing is you need to let guests know, the safe guests, once you've decided to let them self-check-in, you're going to have to let them know that it's actually self-check-in that you're offering them. This has backfired with us a couple times where guests have booked with us, and then we're like, well, here's your self-check-in guide. And they're like, well, I thought I was supposed to meet somebody. And they booked because they like the idea of not having self-check-in. So be prepared for that to mean that you might actually have to meet a guest and hand them the keys and be nice. But by delisting your self-check-in protocol, you can also prevent scoundrels from throwing parties at your place. All right, so let me take a quick break and see if you guys have any questions. Let me, of course, look down 1 sec. Hey, I think I just answered your question. There was a question by Julio that asked, how do you filter out bad or scam guests? Now, this is it. I will add one more thing because you've asked. We call every guest. So a guest books, we have what we call a reservation coordinator. Now, like for those of you who don't know, I have 100 properties. So we have income on 100 properties, and thus we can afford to pay somebody to simply do messages and phone calls. And that person's called a reservations coordinator. So they have a 4-message system that they have to follow. That's on my YouTube channel. There's a message before the guest arrives. There's a post-check-in message to make sure everything's great with their check-in and nothing's wrong that needs to be fixed. Pre-checkout instructions, and then the post-checkout follow-up for the review. That's basically the 4 messages. So these reservations coordinators do the 4 messages, but they also call every guest to make sure that that phone works. We put in our house rules that they are required to have an operating phone that we can reach out to them if we need to reach out to them, and that we will be checking their phone by calling them before their arrival. If they don't answer the phone, and it says, the Google Voice subscriber is not available, if it says something like that, now you know you're in trouble. That person used a burner phone to create an Airbnb account, and you need to now step up your DEF CON procedures to prevent that person from doing shady stuff. We've noticed that phone numbers tend to be one of those things. So that would be one extra thing that I'd watch out for to prevent scam guests. VA suggestions. I do not understand your question. Could you rephrase? And yes, and are we? And the next question is, are we labeling our listings as surveillance devices? So let me grab something real quick. All right, this is the minute system. They actually, it used to be called the minute point system, but the company says it confused people, so they decided to stop calling them points. So it's just the minute system. So this is a surveillance device technically. So in the about this listing, you go into the listing profile, and under listing details, or it's actually under booking details, where you go and list your house rules and your check-in times and whether or not pets or parties are allowed. Below it, there's going to be surveillance. You have to list if you have surveillance devices. And so you're going to list that you have a noise monitor in your home. If you also have cameras, you have to say, we have a camera in this area of the home. And you can then put in your other things to know part of your home, of your listing. Say, we do have security cameras that are motion activated. We disable them when the listing is active, right? We only activate them if there is a house rules violation, we suspect there's a party, or if no one's supposed to be in the home because it's unbooked, we then activate the cameras. So you will see cameras, but we promise you that they are not on. So don't freak out. But for us, we actually only leave the cameras facing the front door, or on the outside the front door facing out. Funny story. Today, my manager in Houston told me that our external camera that was facing the sidewalk caught someone committing a crime. So the police want some of her footage. It's kind of strange. So anyway, this is the main security item that I use. And for cameras, we use the Blink XT2 camera. It's not really better than any other camera out there. It is affordable. It's like $100, and it has two-way audio, so we can actually intercom somebody and say, "Hey, we know that you're screwing around. Stop it. We are going to send somebody to the property if you don't turn the noise down." So using this and the XT2 allows us to kind of create that two-way communication. So that's what we do for that. But that is largely how you keep your property 85% occupied. Now, I will say a couple things because there are some myths. I should do some myth busting here. You cannot put coronavirus, COVID-19, quarantine in your listing. Airbnb will actually soft ban you for putting content that they don't approve of on the listing. So don't do that. you should have photos that imply that you have a better cleaning system. So we, in the photo reels, we'll show a housekeeper doing a real good job of cleaning the home, letting them know that we uphold a, like a kind of like a quality for making sure that the home is disinfected. That is one thing that you can do to kind of like win people's trust, but you can't write coronavirus in your listing. Airbnb will stop you. So that's one thing. Any other questions? Picking more properties. The characteristics. Okay. Question as characteristics for properties that I'm looking for. This gets deep. There are different types of properties that are good in different situations. So whatever city that you're hosting in, what makes it a good home will change. So if you're near the medical center, you want something on the first floor because you want handicap accessible. And another thing you can't put in your listing is handicap. You have to say disabled accessible. So even me using the word handicap is probably bad. So if you're near a medical center, you want to be ADA compliant as much as possible. So you want to have no steps to the front door or no steps to the elevator that gets you to the front door without any steps. So that's one thing that we look for if we're going near a medical center. If we're going near conference centers, downtown, we're looking for high rises. People love high rises. They love a view. And this will just inherently get you 30% more per night, 40% more per night on your bookings because you've got a high rise. So that's what we go for there. Now, when it comes to being sturdy, like in this economy with the coronavirus happening and the kind of shaking things up, the price per listings really starts to matter. So we are leaning more towards B-class properties because the rents are lower, because that makes it more sturdy for us. If we have to lower our rates, our break-even costs are lower. So we can lower our rates to get competitive and stay full. Fortunately for us, a lot of our listings that we have, we've negotiated good deals. So we've got B-class property prices on some A-class properties. Lucky us. So that's another thing we look for, is we're looking for motivated buildings that are willing to negotiate with us special terms. Some of those special terms being the free concessions, like free rent up front. We'll go to a building and say, we'll sign a 3-year-long lease with you, but we want you to give us 3 months of rent for free up front. See, the logic here, though, is they're giving us 1 month of rent for free per year. On a 3-year-long lease, that doesn't seem so scary. But when you look at the math, if it costs you $5,000 to start a property, furniture and security deposit, you'll get that $5,000 back by the end of the second month. So you will have all of your money invested in your Airbnb recuperated before you even have to pay your first month's rent. So if you get your third month of rent for free, you not only made all of your money back, but that third month, you make an extra, say, $3,000 on the property. You have the $1,500 for rent for month 4 and $1,500 in profit and your investment back. So that's one thing that we are very much looking for right now because we are picking up new properties. So first floor near medical centers, high rises downtown, unique spaces, unique layouts, high ceilings, because one big thing that separates an Airbnb from a hotel is the layout. Because hotels are like shoeboxes most of the time, right? And the ceilings are decently low most of the time. So if you can have a home with vaulted ceilings, floor-to-ceiling windows, a unique layout, pillars in the middle of the room kind of stuff, those are great because they have personality and they don't feel so crowded or condensed, and they photograph much better. I would also choose a studio before I choose a 1-bedroom because studio floor plans, same square footage as a 1-bedroom, looks so much more open than a 1-bedroom because that wall that separates the bedroom and the bathroom from the living room just makes everything seem so much more small. So we love studios because not only are the rates a little bit lower, but for a little less square feet, we may have a better looking home, and it costs about $1,000 less to furnish a studio as opposed to the 1-bedroom. Because having to furnish that extra wall on both sides, like console table and artwork and like all that extra stuff, it basically adds about $1,000 because in a studio, the bed and nightstand become part of the whole look. So you can actually achieve a full look with less money invested on a studio. So that's a good start on what I would look for. Try to get your properties under market price, negotiate 3 months of rent up front, do this by promising long-term leases or a bulk deal, go for studios before 1-bedrooms. If you're not doing a studio or a 1-bedroom, skip 2 bedrooms and go straight up to 3 bedrooms because now you're competing in the group space, not on the price space. And Yeah, and research ADA. We'll probably do a video on what ADA is. And Airbnb actually launched a new program about a year ago, and they called me about it. They want me. I've actually long overdue to do the video on their accessibility program. So they have one. This in some cities increases the amount of search results you get by 400% because the supply demand curve is so crazy. Isn't that wild? More questions if there are any. Okay, questions are: am I using other platforms? And how do you pick your unique URL? So actually, I don't even remember how to pick the unique URL. We didn't do it. We just didn't think it was important because Airbnb is trying to get you to promote their website, which they have enough of that. If you're on other platforms, which was the other question, like if you're on Booking.com, VRBO, or Expedia, TripAdvisor, Furnished Finder, Kigo, these are all, I believe Zeevou has their own direct booking, site as well. All of these sites, you're going to need to funnel them into what's called a channel manager, because having calendars on Airbnb and on Booking.com and VRBO, and TripAdvisor, having them all separate makes it really hard to run your business, and you could get double booked, and it becomes a mess. So you'll need a channel manager. And if you have a channel manager, you probably should then also step it up and get your own direct booking website. You create a URL of your own, right? Ours is Padded Suites, and we actually haven't launched the site yet, but we're working on the back end. So our direct listing site, our direct listing brand, and then all these other things like Booking.com and Airbnb, and we're on Furnished Finder too, and we're on Kigo. All these will plug into one software where all the calendars get managed together. And instead of making custom Airbnb URLs for us to share, we're just going to share our own URL. So that way people come to our own website and book and don't pay the 11% Airbnb fee. So we've never made a custom URL because just strategically it's actually not good for business if you go multi-platform. And we did build up to 100 properties before ever leaning on HomeAway or Booking.com. But now we've started to diversify. More questions? All right. The next question, okay, well, actually there's a bunch. Okay. So how do we structure our teams? I'm sorry for those of you who I can't get to all of your questions. Some of them are super complex or nuanced. I'll try. How we structure our teams is simple, though. We hire a housekeeper per 5 doors, typically, or per 6 beds, right? Per 6 real beds. The reason why you could use this change in logic is, let's say you have a 3-bedroom house. All right, well, 3-bedroom house, you probably should have a housekeeper per 2 homes because of how long it takes them to clean. We have a quota of 3 apartments per housekeeper, and if it's a really busy day, like Sundays are some of the busiest days ever, we'll try to increase their quota to 4 or 5 doors in a day, and we'll have them come in a little early, and we'll contact future guests and find if anybody's checking in late, and we'll clean those ones last. But worst case scenario, we get away with 1 housekeeper per 5 doors, and that's like the housekeeper level. Once we have more than 12 doors, 12 apartments, 12 homes in a city, we'll put somebody in charge, like a property manager role. And in each city, we have 1 of those. Dallas has gotten so big, though, that manager has an assistant. So once we broke about 40 properties in Dallas, we hired an assistant for her because there's so much. We've also hired somebody who's our channel manager lead. So we've hired somebody that's a central role for the whole company in all 4 cities. It's their job to get everything listed on Booking.com and everywhere else and make sure that all that's together. Then we also have our reservation coordinators, like I mentioned earlier in this video, and they are also central. They cover the whole company, and they message all guests. They know how to check into all listings. They have all the information in like a centralized Google Drive where we have every listing and all the details. It's kind of like almost like a cheat sheet for every apartment or every home, and they run that centrally. And so that's how we stack it. 1 housekeeper per 5 doors, 1 property manager per city that has at least 12 doors. At 30 doors, an assistant, and then once you go multi-platform, you want to get up to at least 50 doors if you're going multi-platform and you want to hire somebody to run those channels, because all this stuff costs money, and if you're going to pay somebody's salary to do this stuff, you want to make sure that it affects the cost per home at the most minimal amount, right? You don't want to be paying $100 per month per home to hire somebody. If you can have 50 properties and that person's salary is $3,000 a month, then you're actually getting a way better deal, getting it for $60 a home instead of $100. So at scale, you can implement specific roles. So when you're small, somebody's going to have a general job that does a lot of little things. But as you grow, you slice that job into 3 separate jobs. And then that person has like a deep specific role where instead of having a shallow wide role. I'm not going to get too much into business administration or business organizations. I think that would be a little wild for this, but that should have been good enough. So other questions is we are channel manager. We don't have a channel manager we endorse yet. We are activating on Zivu right now because it has like the most features ever, and we're going to see how that works. And we will have a review on my channel for that later. Another one was what areas would I consider if I wanted to start a vacation type property? So this is more of like a macroeconomics question, I think. So where to start a literal vacation property? See, most of my properties are not vacation properties. They're business properties. I have 50 properties-ish in Dallas-Fort Worth. I've got 20-something properties in Houston and 32 properties in Philadelphia. These aren't necessarily vacation areas, except Philadelphia. There are people who do go to Philadelphia because it's the birthplace of the United States. But if you're going to do vacation properties, for example, the Poconos Mountains, about an hour and a half outside of Philadelphia, was jammed from coronavirus because everybody from New York wanted to get out of the city. So they wanted to go to a suburban mountain retreat, and all those hosts made a killing. Beach properties are great for quarantining in style. So I like the Miami area, right? Unfortunately, Dade County is pretty anti-Airbnb. So I would probably do like Fort Lauderdale, Delray Beach, Boca Raton, stuff like that. Fort Lauderdale properties make $25,000, $35,000 a month in prime season. Tampa's pretty friendly. Pinellas County, which is outside of Tampa, St. Petersburg. There's some properties that do really well there. I've got a student, she just picked up some properties. I did a video on my YouTube channel how she got 3 months free on a furnished property, no security deposit. And she did that out in the Tampa area. Colorado does really well, right? Think like Winter Park or Vail or all those places. It's going to be expensive to get a property there, literally. So, like, if you're going to do a vacation rental property somewhere like Colorado or South Florida, or even like in the mountains outside of Philadelphia, I strongly consider that you have home field advantage. That you know better than someone like me who's coming into some strange land trying to figure out what property they want to put on Airbnb. Home field advantage is probably the biggest advantage you can have as an Airbnb short-term rental operator. You know the dynamics of your city, the suburbs of your city. You know why people come. You know how far away they're willing to be from somewhere. So something I don't know is like if I'm like in Winter Park and I'm trying to Airbnb in Winter Park, I do not know how far away someone is willing to get an Airbnb from the slopes that they're going to be skiing or snowboarding in, right? I don't know how far away that is. But if you were from Winter Park, Colorado, I can guarantee you would know how far somebody's willing to drive to go to the slopes. Which means when you see that property that looks like it could be a good Airbnb property, you'll know if it's far enough or close enough, right? You'll know that. Where someone like me, it's going to take me some time doing some research to try to find out the answer to that. So what areas are good for vacation rental properties? Well, any vacation destination should do the trick, but you should use your competitive edge and your local know-how. So look for your local vacation spots. And with that said, there are some places that are more regionally strong for vacations. For example, outside of Austin, Texas. Well, Austin, Texas is a great local tourist spot. Everybody from Texas goes to Austin. They go to the lake for Memorial Day. But even outside of there, there's a town called Fredericksburg, very small German town. And it's like in the hill country of Texas. And that's a really sweetheart town for people in Texas. And if you're from the area, you would know exactly how much tourism comes in, and you'd know if it was worth getting an Airbnb in a town that has a population of like 3,000 people. See, me, I wouldn't do it because I don't think 3,000 people is enough. But I guarantee you there's people who know better than me because they're from that area. So like local, regional tourist spots that have enough business from the like local major cities could be good enough. That is exactly like what the Poconos Mountains are. People from New York and Philadelphia patronize those log cabins in the mountains, and they get enough business to last. Somewhere like Winter Park, Colorado, you get people from all over the world who come to ski in Colorado. So each vacation destination has a different like consumer, a different archetype, and you really need to think about who that person is and what they're willing to pay for. And being local is, I'm just going to say it again, you being local to that is your competitive edge. Have I developed any side businesses from this Airbnb business? Yes, I've developed a few. So this is an interesting question, guys. So side businesses, any business that you create that surrounds your short-term rental business is a synergy play. See, we own a housekeeping company that cleans other Airbnb properties that aren't ours. We make a profit on other people's Airbnb homes, and it gives my housekeepers more work, gives them a steady amount of work in case we had like a slow week. So by us owning our own housekeeping business, we lower our internal costs and we make profit on other customers. That's one example. I have launched a company. I'm actually waiting for our prototype products to come in, but it's going to be a type of lighting system that goes inside your home that kills viruses. And it's obviously specifically meant to protect our Airbnb homes from COVID-19. And any other Airbnb operator who uses the same would be able to advertise that they've got a proprietary technology, light-based, human-safe mostly, that, of course, kills coronavirus. Now, it's UVC light, and UVC light is harmful to humans. There's one spectrum of UVC light called far UVC light. It's extremely expensive to implement, but UVC light can be implemented, and instead of spending all this money on far UVC, we've actually just designed the hardware to shut off when humans are around. And so that's going to be a product that I'll be showing you guys on my YouTube channel soon. Is there's going to be like a UV light that goes above your door, and when somebody walks in, it just shuts it off, so it's safe. There's going to be one by the bed, and it basically disinfects the bedroom, and when somebody walks into the bedroom, it shuts off. So the UVC light is not on to harm someone. Imagine a tanning bed. That is really the best way to explain how UV light works. You lay in a tanning bed and get UVA and UVB light, and that tans you. Extended exposure in a tanning bed will burn you and cause damage. UVC light is a spectrum of UV light. It's just the same. So in this case, we have designed them to shut off. So we'll be talking about that in the near future. It's been a few years since I've been posting YouTube stuff, but you could call my YouTube channel side business. It's an education business where I educate people how to run an Airbnb business, right? You guys are here. I have your attention, and that attention is valuable. So, like for example, I reached out to this company, Minute. I reached out to them because one company tried to get me to endorse their product. And I thought that company was really unethical. So I spent 4 days looking for a competitor, one that I liked, and I found this guys, and these are great. They do pay me a commission when somebody uses my promo code, which is Sean25, but it gives you the lowest price on this device ever. And so, even though I give you content for free, I bring you stuff that I think is valuable, and if you bought one of these point systems, I make money. So I also get cents per ad view or whatever on my YouTube channel. So that is in a way a business. Another business, I'm going to actually be buying a carpet cleaning truck and carpet cleaning equipment. I used to carpet clean when I was younger, and we're going to start doing our own carpet cleanings, not just our own turnovers, but we're actually going to soak and scrub our own carpets, and that'll add to our ability to lower internal costs and keep our homes looking good, but we can also sell that to someone else. That's another example. You can own a furniture company. You can own a moving company. You can own a handyman maintenance company. Put your staff on TikTok, not TikTok. No, put your staff on Thumbtack. So put your housekeepers on Thumbtack. Put your maintenance guy on Thumbtack. And go and sell them to other people through Thumbtack or TaskRabbit. And that's a business, something that you guys can do right now. Dun. How long does it usually or should take for one of your cleaners to clean a one-bedroom apartment? An hour and a half is how long it should take. If you're on let's say I'm in an apartment complex right now. And let's say we have a row of apartments, and we've done this obviously. When we pick up apartments, we get them in batches. So let's say 4 apartments on the same floor here all need to get cleaned. Well, our housekeeper comes in, runs all the laundry in all 4, and then starts actually cleaning one while the washers and dryers are running. This will lower that hour and a half average down to a 50-minute per apartment average, because the longest that something takes for a simple turnover, let's say a bunch of one-night stays, basically light cleaning, the longest thing that takes is the washer and dryer to run. So run them all at the same time, and you can lower that from an hour and a half to lower. But we give people a quota of 3 apartments in 5 hours. And I know I missed a question, so let me go down here. It was a complex one. What platform do you use for automating and sync listings across different platforms? like I said, we're actually activating Zivu, which has a bunch of features. If you're looking for something cheap that just syncs calendars, there's something called Sync B&B. It's probably the cheapest option, but it gives you no bells and whistles. You still have to manage your inboxes, and you have to manage everything else. But Zivu, what we're excited about is it gives you all sorts of operational tools, bells and whistles and stuff. So hopefully it's worth the money. If it is, we'll let you know. All right, let's see if we have any last questions here. Market insights. Okay, I can give you my historical data, and I can give you data from AirDNA. Did a report on this, and it actually lined up with my internal data. So I believe this is pretty strong. I've been telling people that April 6th, I said April 6th was our worst day. AirDNA showed worldwide that April 5th was the worst day worldwide, right? So I think we're pretty lined up on that. I said that it didn't really get bad until March 15th, even though, Ryan Chesky announced that gave everybody refunds on the 11th. People's checkouts still, the average length of stay on Airbnb is like 4 to 6 days long. So even though things hit the fan like March 10th or 11th, people, as they checked out, it didn't really get bad until March 15th. And AirDNA's data showed the same thing. It showed a V pattern of recovery, a check mark pattern. After it bounced off of April 5th, it started to come back up a little slower than it dropped off, but it's showing that worldwide, on average, people are making as much or more money as of a week ago as they were end of February or like first week of March, that the check has completed. Now, there are some cities where people are still stranded and they can't run their business model, and I feel bad. Like, I really do feel bad that anybody ever gets caught they get caught in between their business and the government. That's really rough. But we've seen, to answer this question specifically, we've seen an increase of occupancy, like average, because ours is, of course, like 85, 87%, so we stay pretty darn full. But we get to see what our competitors are at. And April 6th, it dropped down to 31% average occupancy. That means 69% of homes have been empty on average. It dipped down to 31% and has slowly recovered a few percentage points at a time until this last week. I think we saw like 49% occupancy. Where when I look at those numbers, I typically tend to see that my competitors are about 51% occupied on average, like all the competition in my market. So seeing it at 49% was good. Now, average nightly rate is still down some. Average nightly rate, though, from 3 Saturdays ago to last Saturday, went from $73 per night on average to $93 per night on average over 3 weeks. $20 increase. It's a 30%-ish increase. So I believe that in a month, most every city that is back to business will start to see normal occupancy and normal price points in a month. I will say that there will be cities or states like Florida, places like that, that are going to see slower recovery because the city gets in the way. And for those of you dealing with something like that, I'm just going to say I'm sorry, hang in there, and work with your landlords on finding a solution, because we did talk about in previous videos that you can negotiate terms with your landlord, rent terms. So I'd recommend that as well. Oh, good question, Jam. I promised all of you, if you bought any of my mini courses, that the money that you spent on the mini course would be credited towards the full course, because the mini courses are part of the full course. So yes. Alberto, my Facebook manager guy, content editor dude, you've seen him in a couple videos. I asked him to reach out to everybody who bought the mini course for pricing or the sales strategy course, because I do a mini course on how to negotiate with landlords. I asked him to reach out to everybody to let them know that the full course is available for pre-sale, or now it's out, but at the time. So if you have not gotten a hold of or have not been contacted by Alberto, I recommend that you reach out on the Hosts of Airbnb Automated Facebook group asking about your discount, because of course, some of you spent $350 on that pricing strategy course or $800 on the sales course, and that is directly discounted from the full course. It's true. So come and reach out to us if Alberto hasn't reached out to you already about it. Pay structure for staff. That's a good one. So pay structure for staff. The housekeepers are hourly. We pay roughly $12 an hour, and we start to give raises. And then we pay salary for most management roles. Now, if a market is small, we actually do like a hybrid where we pay a small salary and then we pay an hourly pay if they have to do specific types of work. Like if they have to go help a housekeeper out and do housekeeping, we actually let them clock in and get paid for their housekeeping. But they get a smaller base pay, and then as they're needed to do other things, we of course ramp them up by the hour. So that's our creative solution for how we pay people. I think we're about at the hour mark, guys. I think this is probably as long as this should get. But I will answer a couple last questions. We do not do our linens off-site if possible. We try our best to have a washer dryer in each apartment so that way we can run them on-site. If we have to do laundry off-site, we actually increase the number of linens we have on standby for that apartment. Normally we have 3 sets of linens per bed and 4 towels per guest. So if you have a home that has 2 beds that can have 4 guests, we have 6 sets of sheets and 16 towels. Now, if we had to do our linens off-site, we would do 5x linens and we'd probably do 8x towels, because in case something happened we couldn't get loads of laundry done, we want to make sure we have the extra linens and stuff on hand, and we use a hamper system. So the housekeepers come in with a hamper, load up the sheets, throw it by the front door, they do their job, they throw that in the car, and they bring it to a centralized area. I've seen other housekeeping companies that will just send an extra person and they'll go and steal the sheets and then go do the washer and dryer at a laundromat while they're doing cleaning in real time. But I think that that's actually inefficient. And hear me out. If you have 5 properties in different locations that need to have their laundry done, instead of having somebody go and run and pick them all up and do laundry and then drop them back off midday, you can just have housekeepers go clean, take all of that laundry at the end of the day, and have somebody clean it after hours. This allows your housekeeper to have more work, and or the person who does the laundry after hours could also be your reservations coordinator, the person that's answering messages and talking to guests while they're doing the laundry. Because what happens? You're running 5 loads of laundry and then you're waiting around. So that person, while they're leisurely doing the laundry at night, that person could be the same person that is answering guest messages and calling them and talking to them about where the keys are or where, or what the Wi-Fi password is. You can smush those roles together if you have to do laundry off-site, and it actually will lead to big savings. So just think about how much work somebody can do and look at the dead space in somebody's job and try to fill their dead space with something meaningful. And so mixing laundry and a reservations coordinator is a perfect example. Virtual assistant leads? I don't recommend a virtual assistant. Sorry, off-site, no thank you. I know that there's a guy who sells a course that doesn't do anything for you and he uses his VA system. No. The reason why is because you need someone local to handle issues at the property. The one biggest problem we've had during this coronavirus pandemic is we've had trashy guests that we've had to kick out or that are being too loud, and we have to have somebody on site who can handle the business. If the only people you have to go to the home are housekeepers, you'll lose your housekeepers. They did not sign up to be security guards. So a virtual assistant, they do the same thing that your manager who gets paid a salary can do. So hiring a virtual assistant is just taking the easiest work and pawning it off on somebody, and half the time they need you to answer it anyway because if they're remote, they've never been to the property. They don't know anything about the property. You need to have a local leader, and then that local leader should hire local help, because if you ever need to call somebody off the bench to go to a property, you want all of your employees close to those properties. I do not believe in VAs. So that's, maybe I'm biased, but that's my opinion. And last question. Yes, this will be saved on this channel. I know it's unlisted, but I will twist some arms to make sure that this can be rewatched. I'm going to ask Navi to put this webinar somewhere that it can be viewable. I know that he had this as an unlisted link, but I will find a way, even just to get the best snippets from this thing or something. I'll ask Navi to make this available because you guys asked some great questions and you deserve to be able to rewatch it and take some notes. So with that said, guys, thank you so much for spending an hour hanging out with me on a YouTube channel that's not even mine. So much fun. And I've got some really crazy stories to tell you guys on my YouTube channel coming up. So stay tuned for some really weird stuff. And some of it has to do with a new law that was passed that essentially destroys Airbnb's ability to not get sued. That's coming up very soon. So with that said, thank you for watching me somewhere that's not Airbnb Automated, and I'll see you on the other side.